What is going on, guys? This is Kai. We're back with another video. I'm sorry for not uploading anything within the past 2 weeks or so because I was busy with studies, work, and so on, and I was kind of have a little bit of accident. Like I'm sick for the week, so I didn't do anything, and not even locals. So yes, the ban list is just reviewed like yesterday's, and as soon as the list is reviewed, we tested out a few decks that is relevant in the format right now, which is unlikely gonna be splight again because since it hits quite hard, we lost totally awesomes and needle fibers. So we come up with another decks, which is the Tearlaments, and some of you guys been asking for a deck profile for quite a while now. So I decided to build a simplest way of playing these decks and also relevant build that is available to be played in the TCGs, which is like the most optimal build, I would say, and definitely not the most expensive, but mostly is cheapest variant. So without further ado, let's go into the profile and I'll show you guys why I play the build and the card choices I take. So do bear in mind, some is still in testing formats, so whenever the metagame shifted or anything, the format changes. This decks, of course, is gonna change the deck base as well. So for starters, we're gonna be playing the 3 copy of Reinhardt. This is the, we call it a Leicester Invokers of the decks. When this card is normal summon, you can send one Tearlaments from deck to the graveyards, and this card is insane because you normal summon it. Basically, if you resolve it, you guaranteed a fusions, and if this card is sent to the graveyard right effects, you can discard a Tearlament cast, so summon this card from the graveyards. So the send to the graveyard effect is not that good since you don't get a fusions in return, you only get to revive it. So you still want to see it because this is your main normal summon decks. 3 copies. And of course the other name of Reinhardt is the Deep Sea Mare. This is the same effect as the Reinhardt. Is when you summon, you send one Aqua type from deck to the graveyards, and also you can trigger the effects. And the second effect doesn't came up is that you can get to add backs to the hand. It doesn't came up, so that effect is relevant. And for the other names is we play 3 copies of Tearlaments Meru. This is the like Swan Raiders of decks. When this normal especially, you get to send top decks 3 cards to the graveyards. So this effects will came up more frequently than you do. I'll show you guys why when I show you the extracts. And for the another name is 3 copies of Tearlaments Hafnis. This is like their Herald of the Orange Light, except the part that it didn't negate the effects. When your opponent activates a monster's effects on the field, you can activate it set from the hand, special summon it, and send the top 3. By doing so, you can trigger the effects of the monsters you send from the top list in order to apply its effects. You can trigger those monsters to fusions, like special summon your Windas, your any other interruptions to interrupt your opponent's play, which is that does came up quite more often than you think it would. And the last Tearlament monster would be 2 copies of Tearlament Charlene. This should be 3 copies, but I tested out quite a while that it doesn't do much by itself. You have to send another card from hand in order to trigger its effect. And when this card is normal or special, it doesn't trigger the mill or anything. Yeah, I set for summon by itself. So I cut this into 2. It doesn't really affect the consistency that much. When you needed it, you'll search it. If you don't, you'll just send to the graveyard. So 2 copies I think is the optimal number. And for the non-Tearlaments, that would be 1 Shadow Beast, 1 Skomata, and 1 Aerial. This is for the Winda plays. If you use Tearlaments effect to send all of these to the graveyard, it triggers their effects. For Aerial, I play is because now most of the decks are grave-based decks. Interrupting their graveyard will be benefit a lot during the gameplay. And if you needed them again, if you draw the Skomata later during the late game, you can use the Tearlaments effects to shuffle your targets back to the deck and then send them with Skomata again. And for the further lineup, I would say that relevant for us OCG and the TCGs is I play the 3 copies of Dangerous Nessie and 2 copies of Mothman. This engine is so absurd in my opinion because you can use it to discard by the effects of Charlene, and also use their effects to hand to shuffle and discard the specimen that draw a card does came out, because when you send your Tearlaments stuff to the graveyard, you can trigger the effects to fusions. And yes, even in TCG, you can only play one Nessie. By playing Jackalope, Bigfoot, or any other dangers will also do the same. I play Nessie because you get to search the Mothman, and Mothman is a level 4. You can use it to make Dweller, or even make Time Thief, and then since Time Thief's effects detach material is not a cost, so if you detach your Tearlaments and your Mothman, you get to trigger the Tear effects, which do came up. And Nessie, because it's also Aqua type, so sometimes it does synergize well. So 5 dangers is all you need, and also it's a dark. It also can make the Predestipelia, so danger is a must, I believe. And for the hand trap lineups is very standard. I play 3 Maxis, 1 Ogre, 2 D-Crows, and 3 Ash. 9 hand trap is enough because most of the time you will extend them by the effects of Tearlaments or your dangers. So hand trap I try to cut off as minimal as possible, but sometimes those hand traps do came out if you go seconds, so I in the end didn't cut off that much as I can. That's all for the monsters. As for the spell lineups, of course the Fuse spell itself, when this card is activated, you can search any Tearlaments monster from the deck to the hand, and all your Tearlaments monster and fusion monsters gain 500 attacks, which really important that we will make your Winda a 2700 beaters and your Dragonstapelia 3200s, and if you play the branded engine, and we will make your Mirage a 3500 beaters, which is absolutely insane. And also being able to pop your opponent's card if you Tearlaments effect or anything that's returned to the deck by the effects really do came out. And also the 1 terraforming to stretch your Fuse spell out. And also we play the 2 copies of Call by the Grave. This card is just insane in this deck because it allows your combos to fulfill. You to interrupt any place by hand traps is just get denied. I don't play cross out because you wanted to minimize the numbers of hand trap in your decks in order for your decks to maintain its consistency. Also your dangers get to discard anything that is not hand trap, which would be more beneficial. If you discarding hand trap by drawing the Nessies, you didn't earn anything in the progress. Even if you dangerous and then discarded these Tearlaments traps, they at least still benefits you better than discarding the hand traps. And for the one-offs will be 1 instant fusions and 1 card destructions. Card destructions I tested because it is quite nice in a time when you open all your monsters in your hand, and if you have nothing to like returns in the process, you use card destruction to send off all your shadows, all your dangers, all your Tearlaments, shuffle. They use their effects to shuffle the deck whatever you want, and then you get to draw new cards, and it triggers everything in the graveyard that you just send by these effects. Really does broken in my opinions. And the last would be the traps, is 2 impermanence. I don't want to play 3 because this card doesn't beneficial a lot by its own. Of course, interrupting your opponent is nice, but you do want to benefit in this deck in my opinions. And the other 2 trap is, one is their impermanence and their Book of Moons. You only need 1 each because you don't want to open it more, and it's only once per turn. So if you send them off to the graveyard by effects, you get to add back from the graveyards or send from deck to the graveyards. And interrupting your opponent's play will be important in this deck. That's all for the main deck. Is 41 I believe, but I think it's only 40 because I was playing 3 Nessie and 3 Mothman, but I cut it because opening too many dangers doesn't benefit as well. On to the extra decks would be 2 copies of Kitaros. This is the Search Out deck. With this guy's future summon, you can add any Tearlaments cards, and this card is sent to graveyards. By effects, you can send the top 5 decks to the graveyard. And also the second effect is you can special summon 1 Tear from the graveyard by sending itself. Really do came out to trigger the effects. And also this card is a level 5, you can instant fusion it out to make it a 1 card combo. And the 1 copies of Kaladin Heart, this is the one-off because you only summon out during the late game when you have the Fuse spell, and this you get to pop 2 cards for free. You shuffle 1 and pop 1 your opponent's control. Really does came out. And also the special from graveyard to search one really do come out if you enter the grand game a lot. And for the other fusions, I believe broken cards would be 2 copies of Shadow Winda. You make this more than you often do, because if you use the first one, when you want to fusion summon the second one, you can shuffle it back and then to make a second Winda, so you can grind through your opponents. And if you do not have a Winda in the graveyard, you can use other Tearlaments effects to shuffle back other shadow stuff to the bottom of the deck and then use it again for the grind game. And of course, the one Predestophilia, people say that I should play 2 because this card is same as Winda, you will summon more than you know, but I could only find 1, and throughout my tests during last night with Melvin, he used Tri-Brigades. This card only came out once, and by the time I needed to use the second one, it's already at the late, very late game, which you doesn't need a second piece anymore. And for instant fusion target, I play 1 Rare Fish and 1 Millennium Ice Restricts. For Rare Fish, I only play because it's a level 4. You can play other level 4s if you want, but it's a water attribute. When you use it to exit for Dweller, you make it a 2200 beater, which is not that easy to beat through. Millennium Ice is just for the hand traps purposes and for going second. And the one enters because I play Artemis Slay in the side decks. For links, 1 Dark Charmer and 1 Splight Elf. You're probably wondering why I play Splight Elf, because like I mentioned just now, this is a level 2. If you use it to link away for Splight Elf, during your opponent's turn you can bring this back because it's a level 2. You can bring this back. Triggers the effect to send top 3 to the graveyard, and if you send any Tearlaments stuff, you get the fusions and get the pluses off of there. So it really does came out. And Dark Charmer is because all your monsters are dark, and now with Splight gone from the pictures, most Tearlaments will appear and you can use your opponent's dark from the graveyard to make it extend plays. Really do came out in my opinion. For Xyz, I play the 1 Dweller because this card is an all-win against Mirror Match or any grave-based decks in my opinion. And the Time Key Redoer for the folders of rank 4s, and of course the Divine Arsenal AA Zeus itself as the evenly match. And the last slot I play is 1 Baron and the Flare because you can summon your hand traps if you need it, and you make a level 10 synchro with Nessie's. It really do came out quite a while because your Nessie just not gonna stand there and look pretty. You wanna make benefits off of it. For side decks, I play 1 Prakatops. This card itself is already a disturbance to your opponents. And next I play the Skullmeisters for the mirror match and also the Eldritch matchups. This card stops opponents from gaining resources from the graveyard, and since Veiler is not that relevant in this format, Skullmeister is just better in my opinion. And the other mirror match fodders, I play the 1 Nekomane King because now with Ishizu's Gravekeepers in the mirrors right now, opponent will send a lot of stuff from your deck to the graveyard and you get the pluses off of them. You excite this in. If they send this card from your deck to your graveyard, you can force end their turn, which really does came out, allows you to set up 1 more turn. And like I mentioned before, I play Artemis Slay for mirror match and also for the branded matchups to kills off the Mirror Jades. And the 2 Dark Rulers normal for heavy combo plays such as Punk or Tianyi Adventurers. 1 Darkster and 2 Lightning Storm to clear off back rolls and for going seconds. 2 Dimensional Barriers for mirror match as well, or any Pendulum deck since we're having the Draco Slayer and also the Pendulum stuff released from the banlist, so not to mention we have to play this as well for a mirror match. And the last 2 card I play will be Destruction Virus because all your decks are dark attributes, and against certain decks like some people still playing the Splites or any other Flunderies decks, this card is really absurd in my opinion. So guys, that's it for the deck profile. Hope you guys enjoy. If you guys got anything you wanted to ask, please sure to let me know down in the comments below. I'll answer every single one of them. I will be testing this deck in my following weekends on the ranking matchups. Of course, I did not going to attend the Duelist Cup because I have stuff to do and I can't leave leave Penangs for a short while until further notice. So I'm going to leave the vlogs or reports of Duelist Cup to ESDR, so be sure to check him out. And also I'll do deck profile after the major tournament to see any new stuff that we can learn. Of course, be sure to like the video and subscribe as well if you like this kind of contents. I will show you guys a different profile of Tearlaments in the futures, I believe in the next 2 weeks. So hope to see you guys again. Take care everyone.